Two interstate rivals kicking off the 150th season of college football? You couldn't ask for anything better.
Yeah.
Welcome back to the Gridiron Expert, bringing you some of the best college football news, predictions, and analysis. And before we begin, if you haven't already, go over to our website, thegridironexpert.com, and sign up for our newsletter that will come out every single week during the college football season, as well as sign up for our expert picks, where for just $30 you will receive every single one of our 2019 college football spread picks. I can promise you both of those things you do not want to miss out on if you are a college football fan. Also, in the description below, there is a link to sign up for our ESPN College Pick'em League, where you will predict 10 college football games over the course of this season every single week. It's going to be a lot of fun, very competitive. You can become an expert by beating the expert. So go down in the description below, join our College Pick'em group. The group name is The Gridiron Expert, and let's have some fun and competition this season. All right, so now it's time to talk some legit college football. The 150th season of college football kicks off this Saturday when number 8 Florida takes on Miami in Orlando. And it's a very big game for multiple reasons. Not only is it the beginning of college football season, which any game, for me, that would be a big game. But this game is huge also because it's an interstate rivalry game, and it also has the potential to hold some college football playoff implications. As Florida, as we mentioned, is the number 8 team in the country, and many have them as a potential playoff dark horse. And Miami, on the other hand, if they can pull off this upset over the Gators and live up to their hype and their expectations, could be in the hunt for the college football playoff by the end of the season. So a lot of is at stake in this Week 0 matchup. And of course, it's going to be a great way to kick off this 2019 college football season. We're going to preview this entire Florida-Miami game position by position, but first we're going to give you a little bit of background on this rivalry game. Some of you may know this, but Miami leads the all-time series over the Gators 29-26 and has even won 8 of the past 10 meetings. But as we all know, these two teams have not met since 2013. They met regularly from 1944 all the way to 1987. But it ended when the SEC expanded their conference games from 6 games to 7 games. Florida gave Miami the boot, and they did not play regularly since then. Luckily, though, Florida and Miami just scheduled a home-and-home series for 2024 and 2025. So, if we don't see them meet again between now and then, at least we will have a couple matchups between the Gators and the Hurricanes down the road. So a lot of history between these two schools, as we all know. And of course, the rivalry will, in a sense, be renewed when Week 0 kicks off this Saturday down in Orlando. So like I said, we're going to preview this game position by position. And we'll start on the offensive side of the ball, kicking things off with the quarterback position. And this is a major storyline, more so for Miami than it is for Florida. As we all know, the Hurricanes just announced that Jarren Williams, the redshirt freshman quarterback, won the starting quarterback job over the likes of N'Kosi Perry, who had playing experience with the Hurricanes, and transfer quarterback and Tate Martell, who at the time of his transfer, many assumed would just get the quarterback job with the Hurricanes. That simply was not the case. Manny Diaz, the brand new head coach for Miami, and his new offensive coordinator, Dan Eno, saw something in Jarren Williams, a mobile quarterback, that maybe will give them the edge in this game over Florida. So a major storyline there to see how Williams does in his first career start with the Hurricanes. So a major storyline there. On the other side, you have Florida's Felipe Franks, who is a veteran quarterback. Back in 2017, Franks threw for just 9 touchdowns and 8 interceptions. But that, of course, was before Dan Mullen came along. The last year, in year 1 under Dan Mullen, Franks threw for 24 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, and also added 7 rushing touchdowns. So a drastic improvement from 2017 to 2018 for Franks, and you can expect even more improvement in year 2 under Dan Mullen's offense. We are giving the quarterback edge to Florida in this game. While I do think Williams has a lot of potential and a lot of talent, Franks obviously does have more experience than Williams in this game, and I think right now Florida owns the quarterback edge going into this matchup. We'll come down to the wide receiver position. If you've got a quarterback, you've got to have guys to throw to. And of course, I'm going to go right off the bat here and say that Florida owns the edge at the wide receiver position as well. They certainly own that edge in experience. They returned basically every wide receiver that they had from 2018. You've got Van Jefferson. You've got Josh Hammond. you've got Trayvon Grimes, and you've got Freddie Swain. So 4 top receivers right there, along with everybody else. For Florida, Felipe Franks is going to have plenty of receivers that he already has chemistry with to try to exploit some weaknesses in his Miami secondary, which we will talk about here in a second. Miami, on the other hand, not to kind of push away their wide receivers, they returned 3 of their top 4 from last year and added a key transfer this season. They returned Jeff Thomas, who kind of announced that he was going to depart Miami, was going to transfer to Illinois. Then Manny Diaz got the job, and okay, I changed my mind. I'm going to come back and play for the Hurricanes. So that's a huge boost and a huge addition for the Hurricanes. If they didn't have Thomas, this wide receiver core would have taken a huge blow. But with him back, it gives this Miami offense a bigger threat going into 2019. They have their tight end in Brevin Jordan, and they also have a transfer wide receiver from Buffalo, KJ Osborne, who I think is going to make an immediate impact with Miami this season. So Williams, without a doubt, has plenty of solid wide receivers and pass catchers to throw to, but will he have enough time? We'll get to the offensive line here in a second. Will he have enough time to throw, and will he have enough chemistry with them, having just been named the starter just a few weeks ago, and obviously a very tough test against a very dominant Florida secondary. The key in this game for Florida and Miami, as we all know, if maybe you don't, is going to be the offensive line and obviously who's going to have the more experienced and veteran defensive line. Because Florida and Miami both don't have a very dominant offensive line, but they both do have a very dominant defense. And we'll start talking about the offensive line here in a second. Very inexperienced across the board for both teams. Florida only returning 1 starter from their offensive line from 2018. That's just 24 career starts returning for Florida. And career starts matter big time on the offensive line. Florida only returning 1 starter from that group. They only allowed 18 sacks in 2018, which was a major improvement from 2017 when they allowed 37. So decreased those sacks by 50%, a little over 50%. So you saw the change that Dan Mullen brought in 2018. But Miami, on the other hand, only returns 2 starters along their offensive line, a still very young and inexperienced group. With those 2 starters, they only have 30 combined starts. I'm giving Miami the slight edge on the offensive line here, but both, I think, will struggle in this game against, like I said, 2 very powerful defenses, both on the defensive line, the linebacking core, and in the secondary. And that's what we're going to kick off the defense with right now, is the secondary. Both of these schools, as we know in previous years, have been known for having very, very dominant secondaries. Miami kind of implemented that turnover chain under Manny Diaz as defensive coordinator the past few seasons, has had one of the best defenses in the entire nation. And like we've said in our previous videos when talking about Miami, we don't expect the defense to take much of a step back, if any step back, in 2019. If he's still the head coach, if Manny Diaz is still there, the defense is his baby. That's going to be the key for Miami. That's been the key for them in recent years. They didn't have a competent offense to go along with it. The defense will remain a strength once again. And their secondary, though, this year has experience, but not as much as they have had in recent years. They only returned 1 starter from their secondary unit last year. So only 1 starter returning from 2018. That, of course, is Trajan Brandy, who had 3 interceptions last year, was tied for the team high in the secondary last season, but he's only a starter back. Still a very young crew of defensive backs for Miami. So it's going to be interesting to see how these young players can adjust, how quick these young players can make an adjustment in this Miami secondary, and see how big of an impact they can make. Can Bubba Bolden, the transfer from USC, the sophomore transfer from USC, can he make an immediate impact in this Miami secondary and hope to shut down Felipe Franks and this Florida passing attack? On the other side, though, we're giving the edge to Florida. Florida, of course, owning the edge in the secondary here, boasting one of the top secondaries, not just in the SEC, but maybe in the entire nation by season's end. They have C.J. Henderson, Jawan Taylor, and Brad Stewart. What more do I have to say? Extremely talented cornerbacks, extremely talented safety. This Florida secondary is going to be tough for any team to go up against. And going up against a brand new quarterback in Jarren Williams, you know that the Gators are licking their chops right now, ready to feast on a redshirt freshman quarterback making his first start against the 8th ranked team in the nation. I'm not going to say this game is going to be a blowout, but I do think Jarren Williams is going to have a very difficult day through the air. Miami might have to rely a little bit more on their run game with such a talented Florida secondary. Florida owning the edge at that position right now. The linebacking core, though, is a completely different story. Miami owns that edge without a doubt. Florida returns a great linebacker in David Reese. We don't want to dog on the Gators right now. And I'm not saying that the linebacking core is going to be abysmal for the Gators. But when you look at theirs versus Miami's, there's a huge gap in terms of the returning talent and the strength that the linebacking core from Miami is going to have. They have Michael Pinckney, who was the third leading tackler for Miami last season. They have Shaquille Quarterman, who was the second leading tackler for Miami last season. And they also have Romeo Finley. This Miami linebacking core could very well be not just one of the best in the ACC, but one of the best in the entire nation. Let that sink in for a little bit. And it really shouldn't be much of a surprise. It shouldn't be much of a surprise when you've got Manny Diaz leading this Hurricanes team when their defense has been so dominant the past few seasons when he was defensive coordinator. Miami, without a doubt, owning the linebacking edge in this game against Gators. But as we mentioned, the defensive line, that's going to be the key. We mentioned the offensive line here. And while I don't think Miami's going to lay an egg in this game, if you go back and watch our predictions for both Florida and Miami, we both give them a very fair analysis. But right now, back then, and we're going to stick with it, we're picking Florida to win this game. I think right now you have questions at the quarterback position for Miami. Brand new starter in Jarren Williams. They might own the slight edge on the offensive line, but Florida, once again, as we mentioned for a lot of these, on paper, which we'll get to that in a second, but on paper, owns the edge. Defensive line, Florida will be led by Jabari Zuniga and Kyrie Campbell. Now, for Miami, they also have Jonathan Garvin, who's going to be a major boost and major experienced leader on the defensive line for them. And they also got Trayvon Hill, the transfer for Virginia Tech. So both for Florida and Miami, very experienced veterans and leaders along that defensive line. But who's going to own the edge at that position to break through a weak offensive line and wreak havoc in the backfield for either Felipe Franks or Jarren Williams? And if both do that, who's going to own the edge and be able to create enough plays offensively, maybe dumping off some screens, maybe allowing a couple draw plays, delayed handoffs? What's going to be the strength? What is going to be the difference maker in this game for Florida or Miami to get the win when you have two very experienced offensive lines and two very talented defense? Right now, I do believe veteran quarterbacks are going to own the edge in this game, and that's Felipe Franks. And we mentioned that at the very beginning of the video. Felipe Franks owns that edge over Jarren Williams right now. He's a veteran, entering his third year as starter with the Gators. Took a major stride in year 2 under Mullen. Expect a bigger stride, or year 1 under Mullen. Expect a major stride again in year 2 under Mullen. The only key and the only thing that's going to be able to keep Miami in this game, I mean, I think it's going to be a close game all the way around, but the only thing that could cause problems for Florida is Williams is much more mobile than Franks. Franks is more of a pocket passer. Yeah, he had 7 rushing touchdowns last year, sure. Yeah, we've seen him take off on the run, sure. But Williams, much more mobile than Franks. Not as big as Franks. That could be a difference maker in this game. Florida could collapse the pocket. Can Williams, as a redshirt freshman, be able to escape and extend the plays and make the plays needed for this Miami offense that struggled last year and has struggled under recent years, make the plays they need to defeat their interstate rival in the Gators? It all remains to be seen. On paper, Florida owns the edge, but as we all know, paper doesn't matter. Paper doesn't matter. What happens on paper doesn't matter. You have to show it out on the gridiron. You have to put it out on the field, and we know it's going to be a dogfight between the Gators and the Hurricanes, kicking off the 150th season of college football this Saturday in Orlando. College Game Day will be there live from Walt Disney World. You're not going to want to miss anything. College football is back in full force, and we've got a great rivalry matchup to kick things off. So guys, once again, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Go follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Gridiron Expert. Go check out our official website, like we mentioned at the beginning of the video, at thegridironexpert.com. Signing up for our newsletter, signing up for our expert picks, both things you're not going to want to miss out on this college football season. Of course, once again, sign up for our college pick'em group. The link is in the description below. You won't want to miss out on that as well. And once again, thank you for watching us here on YouTube. Please continue to like, comment, and subscribe. And we will see you next time on The Gridiron Expert.